and let us all do we can to build a better future. Pasta, I got some news for you.
Team Orca.
Team Orca? Well, no, not necessarily. But
you see though? Can you see though?
Oh, I see.
I got that just for you, Kit.
And
Cheese slice, my boy, the engineer.
And you know what? It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But you want to know what else is funny, though, and beautiful? Is that President Biden could potentially lose the first two primaries, as he might not make it on the ballot, leaving it open for, yes, RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson to potentially hit that home run homer out the field. Here we go. Let's give it up to Case Study QB. Somehow he's sitting through corporate media. I don't know how you're still alive, buddy.
With more than 6 months still until the first primary votes are cast in the 2024 election cycle, Axios is reporting that already President Joe Biden is in jeopardy of losing two of them, but it's not perhaps what you think. Biden has been pushing for Democrats to host the first primary in South Carolina. That state, of course, helped him secure the Democratic nomination back in 2020. But the proposal has rankled establishment Democrats in New Hampshire and Iowa now. Those two states, of course, are where the first primary votes of the season are usually cast. According to Axios, Iowa and New Hampshire could just hold a primary vote and leave Biden off the ballot, allowing another long-shot candidate to win the primaries there. The DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committee is slated to review Iowa's primary plan today. Joining us now, the author of that report, national political correspondent for Axios, Alex Thompson. Alex, great to see you. We've known for a while now that New Hampshire pretty unhappy with the president's plan to have that first primary in South Carolina. The state senators have made their displeasure known. But Iowa sort of caught me by surprise seeing this report because there hadn't been much talk about Iowa. So where do things stand, and are there any talks that could change this?
Well, there are really no talks that could probably change the current trajectory unless there's some significant shift. Now, Iowa hasn't been as loud as New Hampshire has been, but quietly they've basically said, we're probably going to hold our caucuses the same day. Now, you said they're going to review at the same day as the Republicans, which will be before New Hampshire.
Right.
Now, you mentioned the DNC is set to review the plan today. Now, I can tell you pretty confidently that they are not going to approve the current plan because the current plan has them ahead of South Carolina. So essentially, Iowa has submitted a plan that they know will almost certainly not be approved. So what that does is it kicks the can down the road. They're going to review it in another 2 months. I anticipate they're also going to submit a plan that the DNC is not going to approve.
Okay. Now, Pasta.
Yeah.
DNC's kind of crap in the bed. Your thoughts?
Well, when I went to go see RFK in New Hampshire, that's what he was doing. He was on the Senate floor, the state Senate floor, talking about, please keep New Hampshire as the number one. Don't buckle. Keep it going. You know, this is a very important state. And you got to get really in dirty and gritty with the people. In other words, to win in New Hampshire, you got to walk into barbershops, diners. You got to actually, Kit, check this out, talk to the people. You know what I'm saying? And that's
controversial statement there. You get out of here.
I know, right? I'm a racist. You got to go talk to the people. But, I mean, in joking around about racism, this is what the Biden and the DNC are trying to do. In South Carolina, they have two teams. They got their political team. They got their Clyburn. They can mobilize. They got the Clinton machine, the Obama machine, right? That's part of the DNC apparatus team, the political team. But then they also have the election fraud industrial complex, as I like to call them, where they have all these DRE machines, which they can take the results off. Instead of posting them in every room, they take them off to a secret area, Kit, where they plug it in and they give you the results. No, you don't get to look at the software. You don't get to look at the machines. You don't get to question it. Whatever it spits out, you take it. So that's why in South Carolina, they're using the excuses like, we're going to South Carolina because we want diversity. You know what I'm saying? This is how you get the bleeding heart, white, cappuccino, communist liberals to go along. Don't you want to see people of color get the first say and get to say what's going on in our country? Let's go to South Carolina. They use that as an excuse to get it going because they want right out of the gate. If you've forgotten, South Carolina is the state where Obama worked the phones, and he got the guy who was in second place, in Pete Buttigieg, and the person who was in fourth place. Was she a fourth? I think she was fourth place.
Yes. I don't.
Klobuchar was in fourth place coming out of Iowa, right?
Yeah.
And in New Hampshire, she was in fourth place there after Vegas. The guy who was in second place, the woman who was in fourth place, to drop out and endorse the person who was in 7th place. And after they fixed that election, it was all freaking sailing from there. So they want to do the same thing this time out of the gate. They want to make sure that they crush the RFK and the Marianne Williamson movement, if there's any movement whatsoever, by going to South Carolina first. But, the systems in New Hampshire, and there's some questionable stuff that goes on in New Hampshire. Iowa's really hard to cheat. It's a caucus. But, of course, they'll have their games. Fiorello was in a room where they had the numbers set. They said this is final. They went off to go on to the Bernie campaign's celebration after. And when they left the room, somebody from the Iowa caucus there was like, oh, wait, we have a mistake. We got to do a coin flip. So they were really sneaky about it. But their objective was to make sure that Pete Buttigieg got out there with a virtual tie with Bernie Sanders to slow down his momentum. So to pull these tricks of the trade, it's easy if you go to a friendly place like South Carolina where you have both machines working for you in full force. But that's what RFK was doing. He was talking to New Hampshire and saying, no, hold fast. You guys go first. This is one of the best election systems there. And like I said, much better. They don't have the political machine really working over there in New Hampshire. It's a lot of libertarians, a lot of independent-minded people. I mean, they have on their license plate, live free or die. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
well, the thing is, people have that right to feel how they want to vote. I want to pull up this one last video segment. Again, it's only 34 seconds. It's from Case Study QB, and it's, again, just a follow-up of what's happening in New Hampshire, and to which I have to say, if you're part of the RFK Jr. campaign or Marianne Williamson campaign, even though it's a Democratic primary, if you really want to do hashtag force the debate, which is something both campaigns should be adopting, the fact neither is doing that is pretty stupid. I hope Dr. Cornel West will encourage that hashtag for him, at least to make sure that third parties get on that debate stage. I know it's a dream, and it's an illusion to think that there will be a third or fourth party candidate on the stage with whoever the Republican nominee will be. It's probably going to be Trump, and whoever the Democratic nominee will be. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's still an open election cycle, but let's make it trend. Hashtag force the debate.
And so DNC is going to strip them of their delegates, right? They're out of compliance with the rules, which is also why Joe Biden is probably not going to be on the ballot, because Joe Biden says, I'm going to abide by the DNC rules. But what this ends up the scenario is that you have someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or some other long shot Democratic primary candidate win those first two contests. And then you have a few weeks of like sort of weird coverage before South Carolina, where we should note Joe Biden is almost certainly going to win. He's almost certainly going to be the nominee, but it might be an unwelcome few news cycles.
Well, the thing is, again, what the establishment media is not acknowledging is that what will be the voter turnout in those first two states of Iowa and New Hampshire? What's also going to be the voter turnout for, let's say, RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson? Since Biden is playing the same game that he did in 2020, hiding in his basement, stuttering and stammering like an old man, like people see that. And polling data is showing that Biden is not popular amongst voters. And the quote Nikki Haley, a vote for Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris, whose approval rating is in the dumps. And I'm being kind when I say those words. The real truth of the matter is that there are a lot of Democratic people within the establishment who think that Biden might have this in the bag. And to be fair, he kind of does, because the DNC, as Convo Couch reported, Jimmy Dore, Nico House, Hard Lens, everybody else, the DNC already picks who they want as their nominee, but the narrative is sounding pretty weak, and it's looking like maybe we could see a repeat of what happened to Jimmy Carter when he faced off against Ronald Reagan. Now, again, this election cycle, everything's still up in the open. Anything can happen, but Biden's not popular. What should be our final takeaway from South Carolina? Pasta, I want to give a word to you, man.
Well, this is not the first time they've played this game before. This reminds me of what they did in Venezuela. They told the opposition people not to go out and vote. And you know what I'm saying? Because supposedly there were some people who didn't make the ballot because they didn't abide by the laws. They tried to say that those laws were, fraudulent and whatnot. But this is what they did. The CIA or whatever apparatus directed the Venezuelan opposition to not show up. So then a lot of people don't show up, and they can go, look, this election didn't have that many people participating. They don't want to participate in the democratic system because it's not fair. That's what they're attempting to do here. If, in fact, New Hampshire and Iowa hold still, and they're going to be the first two primaries, the DNC is going to play their games and say Joe Biden's not even going because he's abiding by the DNC, and therefore the low turnout is what they'll use as an excuse to say, to pretty much bastardize the results and to crush the RFK and Marianne Williamson's campaign. That's what they're going to do. They've done this before. They've practiced it before. This is the playbook. It's not a new move. So that's what's going on in our face. But I mean, I don't know how we as citizens should react to that or how we're going to take it. But it's also it's gonna require Marianne Williamson and RFK to make sure they get as many people out during those two primaries, the caucuses and the New Hampshire primary. And what's going to happen? Mainstream media, Kit, they're going to be quiet. We're going to have to get on the ground. We're going to have to show the turnout. We're going to have to talk to the people. So this move about them doing that has a lot to do with independent media doing what we're going to do, and that's to report the truth.
And I also want to give a huge shout out to Mastermind Hour, who writes, Iowa will never surrender, first in the nation, because the only thing they have. We love you, Iowa, from the bottom of our hearts. But seriously, all in all, if you are a Marianne Williamson supporter or RFK Jr. supporter, the key word is get people to turn out. Now, again, the whole scale is used against you. Like I said, I'm going to vote third party and independent. But if you want to shake the foundations of this primary, do not be like the cuck Bernie Sanders. Don't be nice. Corporate media will never be your friend. No one in the Democratic establishment will be your friend. They're not your buddies. They're not your pals. They're not anything. Bernie Sanders already endorsed his good friend Joe Biden. AOC and the entire Congressional Progressive Caucus is going to follow orders. So the only way you're going to really raise the ruckus is by raising an actual goddamn ruckus, and don't be wasting my time. Because if you, once again, bend over backwards and take it up the wazoo for the DNC, I'm going to love laughing at you the same way I love laughing at Republican politicians. DNC, RNC, there is no difference, but I do wish both campaigns all the best. But now more than ever, it's clear to me that the Democrats might be once again tripping over their own foolishness. So grab the popcorn. This election cycle is only beginning.